Hey, I'm Christina Rhea, and welcome to Breaking Out of Breaking In, a practical filmmaking podcast about taking your creative career into your own hands and making great work that gets seen without playing the Hollywood game.
Or at least while changing the rules. Hi, I'm Brie Castellini, your other co-host, and today we're breaking down 2022. Yes, it is an intro episode to the new season, because there are some changes coming your way. But I think all of them are things that you guys will like.
Yes.
I mean, not changes, I guess. It's more like it's season 2 now.
Updates.
We finished season 1. Now we're doing something slightly new to keep things fresh and interesting and exciting. So, Christina, do you want to mention the first thing that's changing? The big thing? The change to season 2 as a whole?
Sure. So, in our first season, we kind of experimented with form for a bit. At first, we were doing a guest every other episode. And then we changed it to every third episode. We would do a conversation between the two of us where we would unpack something, and then we would have a guest to talk about a topic that wasn't as familiar to us. For season 2, we decided to mix it up a little bit and do kind of a series of mini-series in a way where we'll do groupings of episodes with different guests around a specific theme. And so our first one, for instance, is going to be a bunch of interviews with other women in film podcasters. So those will be 3 episodes, and then we're going to take a little bit of break and do one with just me and Brie again, and then we're going to come back with another series. We'll be talking to people who work for hire, specifically in writing and directing in various ways, and then we'll take another break and do a me and Brie, and then we'll have another series, and that'll kind of continue through the whole year. So we'll experiment with that and see how that goes. That'll allow us to bring in more people, have more conversations, but also kind of stay true to just how much Brie and I like to talk to each other.
Totally. Yeah, it kind of came about because as we were thinking about season 2, the list that was the biggest was not like topics we want to cover, but like people we want to talk to. And it was becoming hard to find like a distinct thing that each guest was going to talk about that was like different enough from each other that it justified 2 episodes. So we thought like a mini arc, like mini series would be a good way to do it, because like, hey, we want to talk to these 3 women who also work in film and also have filmmaking podcasts. What is a natural way to do that? Well, let's just group them together. Let's just do 3 conversations with 3 women in podcasts and also in film that we really respect and want to hear about. And so that's kind of how we're approaching this. Is it's our way of like really getting even deeper into topics that we already want to talk about with guests that might be similar to each other, but will have very distinct perspectives on like the same topic or theme. So hopefully you agree. And if there are particular themes, particular guests, and most importantly, episodes that you just want Christina and I to cover, or not just that you want, but like that we haven't covered so far, please get in touch. We really want to make sure that we are doing podcast episodes that you want to listen to. And I know a lot of you are like, oh, we'll listen to you talk about anything, but like, help us out, friends. Come on.
Yeah.
Is there a thing you want to hear us talk about? Let us know. Email us at breakingoutofbreakinginpodcast@gmail.com or at breakingoutpod on Twitter or Instagram. Like, genuinely, it is so helpful to us when you're like, I wish you would talk about X, or I would love to hear your thoughts on Y, you know. So that would be very cool if you would do that. Because it will help us continue programming for you and making great, good stuff.
That's right. Okay, so what's the other new thing this year?
So the other big new thing is that we have a new newsletter. So some of you may remember when we first started making this podcast, maybe not right at first, but like pretty soon after we started making this podcast, we launched a Substack blog where we would alternate between a free newsletter with a couple of like resources related to the podcast we just released, and a paid newsletter, which was in the same feed and you would get the bonus content for. Then Substack decided to be bad about reacting to hate speech against trans people, and we left. And we went to Patreon, which has been wonderful, and we really like Patreon as a place for hosting our bonus content. Unfortunately, because of the nature of Patreon, there wasn't an option to have a free newsletter in the same feed as the paid content, obviously. So we do have a $1 tier for those of you who missed, getting reminded that there's a new episode out and hearing from us a little bit more directly. So, hey, if you want to just give us $1 a month, genuinely, that's very, very helpful. And we do post stuff for the $1 tier. So patreon.com/breakingoutpod. But we also missed having a free way to talk to those of you who just want to hear more from us. And something that we both really enjoy about like other parts of our creative life is having a sort of accountability and structure around creating new work and like continuing to be creative even when it feels very hard. So we decided to launch a creative inspiration newsletter. So once a month we will send out a prompt with some examples and try to do it together. If it moves you, if the spirit moves you. So these will range from like pitch prompts, so just things that you need to write a log line and a synopsis for, Oftentimes we'll encourage you to time these so that you're not spending too much time on it. Sometimes it'll be a script prompt, like write a 2-minute scene about your cats. Sometimes it'll be a filmmaking
Definitely
prompt.
on board with that one.
I'm sure Feline Fables will make an appearance. That's a deep cut for you Christina Rhea fangirls and fanboys and fan thems. Just fans, gender neutral Christina Rhea fans. But point being, we've come up with a variety of types of prompts, some a little bit bigger of a lift than others to regularly keep you inspired, especially if you're feeling kind of and we'll also make sure to remind you of the most recent episodes that have come out. So it's part, hey, remember, 2 new episodes came out this month, and part like, let's create stuff together. And hopefully, if this gets up to speed, we will also be sharing people's responses to these prompts if you want to share them with us to try to create a little bit more community around this whole shindig that we're all up to. That's right. If you want to be creatively inspired on a monthly basis and just be a part of our community for absolutely no money, head to breakingoutpod.com, scroll to the bottom, and you can sign up for the newsletter. Oh, and I guess I should mention one of the other reasons you should subscribe to the newsletter is because you get a free production ebook that's kind of a curation of a lot of our first year of Patreon infographics. So it's not all of them. You who subscribe to Patreon still have like way more content, but there are a handful of new things that are updated slightly. But yeah, we made an ebook of a lot of our best Patreon infographics that is totally free if you sign up for the podcast. So signing up is super easy. breakingoutpod.com. You will get our free production ebook and I think 2 templates as well, a script breakdown template and a budgeting template. So even if you just want the freebies and don't really care about the newsletter, you should still subscribe to the newsletter and maybe we'll convince you eventually.
That's right.
Is that everything? There was a lot in that. But hey, newsletter, freebie, join us.
Yeah, I think that's it. We took a little bit of a break. We took like 2 weeks of nothing. An attempt at nothing, anyway.
Yeah. As nothing as Christina and I can do.
Right. So Brie, how are you feeling now that it's the new year? We should have said Happy New Year at the beginning of this.
Yeah, but we're not like everyone else, Christina. We're not like every email I've gotten today. We're different.
That's true.
I mean, I'm okay. 2 days before the new year, I spilled an entire glass of water on my laptop, which Christina and I were discussing before we turned the podcast on. So it's a little slower of a start than I had hoped because I'm trying to recreate a lot of stuff from like not really backups, kind of backups. So yeah, I haven't had as much of a like, it's a new year kind of momentum as I'd hoped, but I'm feeling very positive. I've already started to implement some of the things that you and I talked about in our last regular booby of last year. That's when we talked about our New Year's resolutions, right?
Yep.
Our like end of year recap. So yeah, so I've started doing that. I've quit several jobs. I declined a job that previously I probably would have been like, yeah, sure, I'll add that to my plate. And while on a from a financial perspective, especially having to have bought a new laptop in an emergency, that's making me a little anxious. But I am excited to have a lot of things off my plate to refocus my energy on trying to make my computer again and also to make progress on creative projects. So I'm feeling generally hopeful, if a little miffed. But it's the first day. We're recording this on January 3rd. It's my first day back at work since the holidays. Yeah. So, it's hard to say right now, but, I still got that New Year's glow, as much as I have managed to maintain from that. But, one of the best years of my life started with me getting the neurovirus from an airport, and truly the most wretched I've ever felt. And yet it was the best year of my life. So who knows? Maybe the water spill incident of 2021 leading into 2022 will be a boon I didn't even realize. So what about you, Christina? How are you feeling at the beginning of the new year?
I'm feeling kind of the same. I feel it doesn't feel quite like I've got a refresh because I'm still in limbo about trying to move. And I did find out that I didn't get that directing job that I talked about in our last episode, which I think was at least it let me close out the year without having something still kind of hanging. And so, sure. Because I do feel so in limbo in general that at least I could close that one door. And the producer did say that she wants to read one of my scripts, though, which is Silent Night, the one I'm constantly talking about wanting to make. So that at least maybe is opening another door to maybe getting one of my goals for this year on the road. We'll see. So I feel like I'm kind of in this weird space of waiting for things to really kick into motion for this year. But I am also trying to feel hopeful. So
yeah, I mean, I'm definitely in a kind of strange limbo too, because even though I've actually quit both of my teaching jobs at this point, that was the 2 jobs that I've quit already. Who knows what else I'll quit? Just watch out, everybody. One of them, I have to close out the year because it's a 2-semester long program. So I'm still at one of the jobs that I've resigned from. And I still have my other podcast that I'm going to be recording through the end of April, if all goes well. And then we'll be releasing through the end of July. So I have half a year left on this other podcast, which is a lot of work. And I've just got a bunch of sort of lingering responsibilities and stuff. My to-do list right now of just things I'm trying to orient myself to do is 3 weeks long, and I have 1 week to do it. So I'm in this weird position of I'm making all the right decisions, but I still have to close out the previous bad decisions that I've made. Not bad. I won't say they're bad. Any of the decisions are bad.
Chapters. They're chapters.
Exactly. And I'm looking forward to closing them because I want them to be done and complete so that I can move on, So it's trying to have patience for the fact that my new year kind of doesn't start in January.
Yes.
But also not putting things off because I'm well, my new year didn't really start yet. So I guess I can wait a couple of months before I start eating salads. You know what I mean?
Right.
So anyways, alleviate both of our anxieties by helping take some planning off our plates and recommend upcoming episode ideas.
Yes.
Do you want to one thing you asked me to do today, Christina, was help you decide what our first Just Us episode should be after our Women in Film and Podcasting mini-series. And a lot of the episodes sound interesting. Maybe we should ask our audience, see what they think of a handful of ideas that we're kicking around.
Yes. That episode would come out on February 24th. So you won't hear from us just talking to each other again until then. So what do you want that topic to be, Brie? What are some ideas?
Yeah, well, some of the ideas that we already have that are interesting to me, and I just don't know which to start with. Professional jealousy is definitely something that feels relevant, especially when you're starting a new year and being this is the year I get my career in place. And then seeing, the friends of yours that are I just got staffed for the first time and all that kind of stuff. So that's definitely something that I'm trying to keep in perspective because I know that it didn't just happen. All of the wonderful people in my life who have gotten it have gotten it for good reasons after many, many years of hard work. So that's definitely something that was interesting. Shooting in your home is another idea that we had. That one's a little bit more back to the sort of practical brass tacks stuff. But as I am possibly filming something in my own home again in the hopefully near future, it's something that's also on my mind. And now that I'm beyond the frantic I must make something every 6 months or I'll die system of my life, I'm trying to remind myself what things that were good about the way that I used to make films, and what things I would like to improve for the future. So I, as a person who has also shot a lot in her home, Christina, I would definitely be curious to talk to you about, you know, your pros and cons, and the way that you set boundaries so that your husband doesn't feel like he's, you know, trespassing in his own home and things like that. Something I have to think of as well. And yes. Also writing and producing for found footage is something that I always like talking about, because it's such a different, not just style of filmmaking, but also style of writing and storytelling that I find very exciting. And so I like having those sorts of conversations.
Yeah, I personally like talking about the less practical things with you. I like talking about the more exploratory stuff, but I don't know what our audience wants more of. And our guests are going to cover a lot of the practical stuff. And so I feel like we touch on a lot of things that we could easily elaborate on. If our listeners are like, I loved when you kind of talked about this little piece in that one episode, could you go deeper into that? So I think just let us know what you want more of.
Yeah, we are open. We love hearing ourselves talk and hearing each other talk. So if you give us a topic that we're like, yes, I want to hear myself and Christina talk about that, then all the better. And we'll give you props, and you'll get a shout out, and you won't even have to give us $10 on Patreon to get it. So, hey, folks, this seems like a win-win. So reach out. Once again, the email that you can reach out to us at is breakingoutofbreakingandpodcast@gmail.com, or our Twitter and Instagram profiles are at breakingoutpod, which is the same as our website, breakingoutpod.com. Should I have gotten breakingoutpod@gmail.com? Yes. Did I? No, because I made the email first and then discovered that it was too long to do a Twitter account for. So once again, because that's not confusing at all, breakingoutofbreakingandpodcast@gmail.com, at breakingoutpod on Twitter and Instagram. Reach out, let us know, and thanks so much for listening.
Yeah, and thanks so much to Kelsey Rauber for our theme music, Kaylee Brown for our podcast art, and again to all of you for listening. Links to learn more about them, as always, are in our episode description.
And thank you to our Booby VIPs, who are our $10 supporters on Patreon. That is Kim Garland, Amanda Blount, Anthony Epp, Kelsey Rauber, Norman Steinberg, Jerry Maravilla, Rain Bernal, Shayna Reyes Woolley, and Shannon Spangler. If you want your name on that list, or if you want to have access to our bonus resources related to each episode, you can subscribe to our Patreon for as little as $3 if you want all that bonus content, or as little as $1 if you just want to support us. And once again, that Patreon is patreon.com/breakingoutpod.
Or you could join our free newsletter, where we share a new creative prompt each month. First up in season 2, we'll be talking to Amy DePaula of Pink Among Men podcast, so be sure to tune in.